It's imperative for leaders, and remember, we are all leaders. Okay, so we all have to do this. But we have to become skilled at critical thinking. Being critical thinkers. And most of us don't think that hard. So I'm going to go kind of step-by-step way through critical thinking so you get a concept. I hope you'll gather the concept of what I'm talking about. Critical thinking begins by questioning the basic assumption that we're considering. Now I'm going to give you some examples. When I go to bed at night, I assume I will wake up in the morning. That is an assumption. Right? I hope it's correct. But what if it's not? Are things prepared in my home for my spouse and children if that's not the case? See, that's the basic assumption. I've heard university professors complain about the quality of incoming freshmen and their inability to write, and it's pretty bad. And I heard a colleague of mine say once, they just don't belong here. And I said to her, well, then where do they belong? Do you want to put these 18, 19, 20-year-old young men back in high school? I don't think so. So we're an institution of higher education. If we have students who need remedial work, we can provide that and charge for it. The assumption that they don't belong here, I think, is mistaken. That's questioning the basic assumption. Now let me give you another one of tremendous importance. At the end of World War II, the Soviet Union had run over Czechoslovakia and Poland and East Germany and Austria and gone all the way down and carved out Hungary, not Austria, Hungary, and had carved out most of Eastern Europe. And then, as Churchill described it, had built an iron wall, an iron curtain descended from the Baltic to the Trieste. And then the communist Soviet Union was behind it. Many people in the West, including here in the United States, immediately began to talk about war with the Soviet Union, to free the people of Czechoslovakia and Poland and Latvia and Romania and all of the countries that the Soviets had run over and kept. There was this clamor for a war which had certainly been a terrible mistake and costly. There was a man by the name of George Kennan, Kennan, who wrote a paper. Kennan knew the Soviet Union very well, by the way. He'd spent years there in the Foreign Service. And he wrote this paper and said, we do not need to go to war with the Soviet Union. We do not need to cross their borders and attack them. Their country, the way they have put it together after the war, is far too big for them to manage. Hundreds of dialects, dozens and dozens of religions, dozens of languages, an economic system that is bound to fail, and a wall separating them from the free flow of information and invention and innovation and creation and technology. They have not only kept other people out, they have locked themselves in. Robert Frost said it very well in a poem he wrote when he said, before I would build a wall, I would know what I was walling in and what I was walling out. And Kennan said, don't. Concentrate your energies instead in building the free world, the Western democracies, into strong, good, healthy, vibrant economies, countries, nations, and democracies. Become good places, better places, stronger places. The Soviet Union, he wrote, will collapse by itself. He wrote that, I think, in 1947. I believe it was published in 1948. And what happened 50 years later? The Soviet Union crumbled by itself. Because Kennan questioned the basic assumption of war. And we adopted the containment policy of keeping them in there. If they tried to come out, we would resist. And they crumbled from within. We question the basic assumption. Do we have the strength to do that? We all say, oh yeah, I can do that, I do that. And then if you ask a question of someone about their religious faith, they'll go berserk on you. They don't want to answer that assumption. Right? So I should stay away from those. I have asked students, now listen to me carefully. Do you believe in the possibility of human vampires? And they will say, no, there's no such thing. And I said, no, wait. I didn't ask you if you believed in the probability of them. But you believe that anywhere on this planet, somewhere, it could be possible. And I will have students who will still say no. I don't know, but I think it's possible. Right? I'm like Fox Mulder on the X-Files. I hope they're out there. I hope there's other people out there. I hope they're doing a better job with their planet than we're doing with ours. Right? But we have to be willing to question the assumption. Maybe we don't have to grow corn and soybeans. Maybe we can grow fresh vegetables and transport them into the cities nearby instead of having our fresh vegetables come from Mexico or further south. I mean, there are lots of ways of questioning the basic assumption. And critical thinking begins with that. Higher education years ago blew off the idea of online education. In Phoenix came out, I heard educators say, it's just a fad. It'll go away. Well, it's not a fad, is it? And it didn't go away. The assumption that students have to go somewhere and fight for a parking place and to walk into a concrete building and sit in a small wooden chair to get an education. That's a false assumption. You see? And so we have to question the basics. So what do we do then? The next step is to identify the correct problem that we are trying to solve. I like to go through a step called the 5 whys. All right? The 5 whys. Why was Joanne late? That was the first why. Well, Joanne was late because the truck wouldn't start. Well, why wouldn't the truck start? The second why. Well, because the battery was dead. Well, why was the battery dead? Because the chargers in the shop are worn out. Well, why don't we replace them? We don't have the money. Why don't we have the money? Because you, sir, cut the budget last year. Right? The real problem is what? We dig for the real problem. We don't worry about the symptoms. We go after the real problem. We solve the right thing. It's called the 5 whys. Now, on a side note, sidebar, step to side, sidebar. Don't ask people why they did something. Because you're questioning their motives. That's an impolite thing to do. My wife says, why did you do that? And I use Bill Cosby's son's answer, I don't know. Well, now what's she going to say? Huh? Yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. It said, don't question why did you do that. And so if she keeps after me, I say, Satan, maybe? Satan made me do it. Right? But you have the right to ask, why was the problem there? Why dig to get to the real problem? Then you know what to solve. So now we're in the third step of critical thinking. We are going to attempt to solve the problem. Okay? Gather wisdom. Gather wisdom. When I teach crisis, I don't start with crisis management. It's too late. Calling 911 is often too late. All they're going to do is come out and draw a chalk mark around the body. All right. When I teach crisis, and we'll have that section, probably 2 or 3 of them later, I start with predicting the crisis. Here's where it'll come. I remember in Godfather 1, when the Godfather, Don Corleone, says to Michael, Michael, the one who brings you the message to set up the meeting, he is the traitor. Right? Predicting the crisis. Right? By gathering wisdom, we can predict by getting information. We can study for example, what will bring down our church? Well, what brings down other churches? What causes difficulty in churches around the world? Let's take a look. What have other people done when they have seen this problem? Did it work? What did it cost? We gather wisdom from other people. And I hate to admit this, but I think I was 65 years old before I was willing to admit that somebody else might know something. Oh yeah, boy, you give me a problem, I'd have the solution in about 3 minutes, and by God, that was the solution, man. It's all I needed to know. And of course, by doing that, I missed lots of opportunities to have a better solution. I didn't get any buy-in from my coworkers, and very often I was wrong.